Coming up today, at just 27, this young newlywed was already facing the challenge of his lifetime. His surprise diagnosis and the aggressive treatment path giving him some hope. Good morning, I'm Jessica Lovell, and welcome to the Morning Medical Update. When Jackson Layton was told he had stage 4 colorectal cancer, he was devastated. He immediately sought answers, a second opinion even, and started doing all he could to better his chances of survival. Nearly a year later, while his diagnosis remains the same, he hopes by sharing his story, it will inspire other young people to wake up and pay attention.
When's your chemo? Is it today?
So it says chemo is Tuesday next week, and they're trying to schedule a colonoscopy for that day as well.
Okay.
When I first got diagnosed, everybody that I talked to told me I was going to be dead in 2 years, and if I lived longer in 2 years, it'd be an absolute miracle.
So he's looking 4 weeks from today.
For surgery.
For surgery.
Not long after 27-year-old Jackson Layton walked down the aisle, he learned he had become a part of an alarming growing statistic.
Worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Turns out it ended up being stage 4 cancer, stage 4 colorectal cancer.
So these 3, some of them shrunk faster than the others.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So
That was nearly 1 year ago.
I had complete bowel blockage with a tumor in my colon, and then they stopped counting after like 40 tumors on my liver.
The only one I worry about is this one, but it looks like it's just fatty sparing.
Wow.
Since then, Jackson has been in and out of the hospital with surgery, aggressive chemo treatments, looking for answers, even seeking a second opinion. He found the right team and treatment path at the University of Kansas Cancer Center.
Dropping the colostomy, which is sitting here, is fairly straightforward. We make an incision around the stoma itself.
Okay.
And then we also go through this incision that we did right here too.
Oh, really?
He recently underwent surgery to reverse his ostomy, a decision that involved his entire team, but one that is helping Jackson maintain quality of life while he navigates the unknowns of stage 4 cancer.
When I first got diagnosed, I was extremely fearful of death and living with cancer and what would the next couple months look like. But through it all, I've really shifted my perspective and focus to just focus on each day and what I can do to enjoy each day and make the most of it and to help the people around me.
And Jackson is doing just that. He started a nonprofit to raise awareness for other young people like him who missed the warning signs of colon cancer.
How's your foundation?
Good. Very good. We just got our second event scheduled. We're doing a trap shooting event at a place called Powder Creek in Lenexa. The greatest thing ever that's happened is that being able to share my story and use this platform. I've had over 50 people tell me I was the reason they reached out to go get a colonoscopy. And so the one thing I would say more than anything is to do your best to acknowledge if something feels off. Don't try to be tough and not go to the doctor. Go get checked out.
And we are so glad to welcome Jackson back to our program today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm so glad to have you. I'm doing well. We are also glad to be joined by medical oncologist with the University of Kansas Cancer Center, Dr. Rayed Al-Rajabi. Dr. Al-Rajabi, glad to have you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Jackson, how have you been feeling since the last time we spoke?
I'm feeling relatively well. I've got good energy levels. Just continue to do treatment every 14 days with Dr. Al-Rajabi, and eating good. I'm struggling to put on weight a little bit, but other than that, I'm feeling really good and feeling really optimistic.
Dr. Al-Rajabi, since we spoke to Jackson last, Dr. Ashcraft, Jackson's surgeon, performed a surgery on Jackson. Can you explain what that surgery and what that procedure was? He had this ostomy reversal. Can you tell us a little bit about what that entails?
So basically, Jackson had required an ostomy because his surgery initially was pretty emergent. He was blocked on the left side of his colon. So what we tend to do in that situation, because it's an emergency, is divert the stool so the bowels can have time to heal. Usually in most cases, patients are off of chemotherapy, and that's when we basically release the bowels from the surface of the skin, and they're usually just they're already connected. We just have to release that process, and that's what Dr. Ashcraft did. Now, in Jackson's case, it was a little bit unique. He was still on chemotherapy, and we had to devise a way to figure that out, especially as the ostomy is really causing him a lot of quality. It was affecting his quality of life, and he felt that was a goal that we wanted to try to achieve.
Right. So you and Dr. Ashcraft and Jackson all met together to make sure that this was the best route to go. There was some decision making to go into that because you mentioned he would have to go off of the chemo. There were some concerns there. Just kind of talk us through what those conversations were like and when you all have to come together to make the best decision for a patient like Jackson.
I think our goal is really Jackson's goals, and try to achieve as many as we can safely for him. Stopping chemotherapy or holding it for a prolonged period of time could potentially cause resistance in the cancer, making it more difficult to get back under control. Now, chemotherapy is the most concerning before and after surgery, but targeted therapy is not. So Jackson's on targeted therapy that we combined with this chemotherapy, and that should have a good amount of disease control during this time when we have to hold off on chemotherapy. So we devised a way where we would just stop parts of his chemo and continue others that were safe with the surgery and didn't affect his healing. So me and Dr. Ashcraft and Jackson talked in different situations and scenarios, and eventually felt that we had a good coordination, and we had a plan on when to stop which chemos and when to resume them. The whole team was, of course, informed, and the plan went through very well.
Good to hear. And you're 28 now or 29?
28. I'll be 29 in January.
Yeah, it's coming up. Quality of life is everything, as we know. Why was this so important to you, Jackson?
It was important to me just because it felt like there was a few things that I used to be able to do that I couldn't do with the ostomy. One of them being Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a big thing that I train and have trained for years now, and that's something I couldn't do with the ostomy. So being able to get that reversed, and I actually was able to get back post-surgery to my first class last week, which was unbelievable. And, I mean, a whole bunch of other things. I'm an avid hunter. It didn't really, prohibit me from doing that, but it made things quite more difficult for it. So being able to reverse it was something that was definitely a thought in my head, and obviously it was a big risk with my mutation and with the cancer and everything, but I fully trust in Dr. Al-Rajabi and Dr. Ashcraft, and so after we talked, kind of decided that if we were going to do it while being on chemo and everything still being here, like that now would be the time to do it. So went ahead and went through with it, and back on chemo now and just still trying to get after it.
Another important decision maker in your life is a young woman by the name of Hannah, your lovely wife, and I think we have some photos of Hannah. Let's talk about her. She was supposed to be here today. She was unable to make it, but let's bring her into this conversation because she's been so important from the very, very beginning. Yeah,
she's been an absolute rock star ever since I got diagnosed. I mean, she was immediately researching anything and everything about colon cancer, getting into all these groups to find out more about my mutation, asking, every single question you can possibly think of. She's probably reached out to like 40 different hospitals for me, going through everything to try to get different opinions and ask all of the right questions. I mean, she's got like a book this thick of different types of things, tracking my diet log, treatment log, everything like that since I got diagnosed back in January. So I call her a rock star because she has been, and she definitely struggles with it just as much as I do, and she never shows it. She always puts on a brave face, and she's definitely the strongest person. So she has been. I know. I remember all that research she was doing. She could join Dr. Al-Rajabi's research team with all that work she was doing. Doc, Dr. Al-Rajabi, explain for folks exactly what's going on with Jackson's diagnosis. Tell us what it is from the beginning.
So Jackson was diagnosed with pretty advanced stage 4 colorectal cancer or colon cancer. The primary tumor was removed because it was causing the blockage initially, but it had already infected several lymph nodes, and we already knew that it had spread outside of the colon at diagnosis. There were, just like Jackson mentioned in the video, more than 40 lesions in the liver that we initially saw. He also had cancer that burst outside of the colon wall into the lining of the bowels. So Jackson has a rare form of colon cancer. It's something that has what we call BRAF, or it's a mutation that drives this cancer, making it more aggressive. And with cancer spread out this extensively, it's very hard to control, especially with traditional chemotherapy. There was a study that was recently presented. I think Jackson was started on treatment even before this was FDA approved. And it showed that combining chemotherapy plus targeted therapy targeting the BRAF mutation improves outcomes and survivals in patients with this very aggressive form of cancer. So he had a really good response with some toxicity from the treatment, but enough that was manageable, and had very good radiographic response. That means the images showed shrinkage of his cancer and control of his cancer to the extent where we couldn't detect some of this on the molecular or DNA level, but I think the most recent surgery with the reversal, we did detect that there were still some active cancer in the lining of the bowels, and fortunately, this treatment is controlling all of his disease wherever it is, and his last PET scan also indicated that. So I think right now it's really working well and shutting down all of his cancer, preventing it from spreading, preventing it from causing more damage.
Dr. Al-Rajabi, I mean, you are working with cancer patients all the time and all sorts of diagnoses, but I mean, are you left scratching your head when you meet a patient like Jackson, so young, a rare cancer, and are you kind of going to the drawing board and saying, how do I get to work and help a young patient like this and find the right treatment path to start getting him better, start getting him some hope, and getting him well? Where do you start?
I think, we unfortunately are seeing more and more younger patients, and they have a unique situation. In the past, most of our colon cancer patients were above the age of 50 or 60. You're talking about patients that have had completed their families, they're retired, they're financially stable. So there's a lot of issues that come through when you're dealing with a younger patient with colon cancer. It's a complicated process, and we as oncologists all from studies show that we will treat patients with younger onset colon cancer much more aggressively than other patients. So they endure more toxicity from the treatments just to try to gain as much benefit as we can from our treatment. So it is hard, but I think unfortunately our situation it's becoming more frequent, and this is a day-to-day thing in our practice, and unfortunately we'll see more and more over time.
I want to ask you another question, Doctor, but I want to ask you, Jackson, about how this first presented for you, because that's what's really tricky about this, because you were really misdiagnosed for several years, which is how we got in the trouble that you got in. So explain to our audience about some of those missed symptoms and misdiagnoses.
Sure. So, I've had stomach issues for a long part of my life, ever since I, probably turned 18 or so. And I was always told it was either acid reflux or GERD or irritable bowel syndrome. And it was nothing really to worry about. Take some Tums, you'll be fine. That's really it. And then as I continue to get older, and looking back up to the year that I got diagnosed, there was definitely signs that I was not paying attention to or was aware of. I was kind of chronically fatigued a lot more.
And you were in college, right? This is college age. You're not having the best diet, not sleeping. So a lot of these were pretty typical symptoms of a college kid.
Yeah, I didn't think anything of it. And then even leading up till after college, I was an athlete in college. I was eating well. I was exercising. I wasn't doing it, the typical things you would think that would kind of lead up to something like this. And I started experiencing more fatigue, losing interest in going and working out and doing exercise. I was like pale all the time, so the anemia that I never really caught on to, like I'd go out onto the lake every single weekend during the summer and I would not get like a tan at all. And it was something I didn't really notice up until I got diagnosed and ended up having to go to the hospital. My stool started changing shape and thinning, and then I actually ended up getting blood into my stool, which I thought was just like hemorrhoids, something along those lines. I didn't really think anything of it.
Because you're young.
Right. I've always had kind of diarrhea and, different bowel movements and things like that. And then, it finally caught up to me, and then I got diagnosed, and I started looking back, and I was like, there's kind of every single one of the symptoms all within 1 year, as I realized that after the fact, and nothing that I paid attention to or really thought could have been cancer. And why would I? I'm 27. I wouldn't think I'd have stage 4 colon cancer or cancer that young. And so that's probably the mindset of most young adults, is that it's probably just a stomach issue or something along those lines. You don't necessarily think that you have cancer.
Yeah, maybe something you've been eating.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Something in the diet.
Exactly. That's all I thought it was. Turns out I was completely wrong.
And did you go see a doctor?
Yeah.
And they were telling you what?
Yeah, they were just telling me that I just had stomach issues. It was just IBS. I never once was told I should probably get checked out, get a colonoscopy, or explore it any further, like ever in my life. They all just literally said, IBS, it's just typical stomach issues, change your diet, and I'm eating like chicken and rice and beef and rice and vegetables. Like I'm not eating fast food and a bunch of crap like that. I rarely was, and so they just continue to push it off as to something else.
Well, first of all, thank you for describing that and being candid about what those symptoms were and what you were seeing in your stool. And Dr. Al-Rajabi, I mean, he was noticing, Jackson was noticing all the right things and asking the right questions, going to the doctor, but not getting the right answers. So how do it clearly this is how it's presenting, but how does someone know when to go see the doctor, when to push for more answers? When you're young like that, that's really what we want to focus on today. We know when you're 50 and you can get these colonoscopies, we know that's happening. But when you're young like this and you know something's wrong, and we now know these statistics are saying that you can get this cancer, how are these young people supposed to push for more answers from their doctors?
So, Jackson painted a very good picture of most of the symptoms that you would see with colon cancer presentation. Unfortunately, we know from the research that 2/3 of patients, over about 70% of them, see 3 or more physicians before they're diagnosed, which is the heartbreaking truth of young onset colon cancer. Most patients, the majority of them, are diagnosed with advanced disease, unlike other patients where we screen them, we find early stage disease, which is easily curable. So you really just like Jackson said, you got to be your own advocate, and anything that's persistent more than 2 weeks really needs to be checked out by your primary care physician. So you're having change in your bowel habits. Yeah, it can happen, a few days in a row. That's perfectly fine. But anything about 2 or 3 weeks consistently a problem that's different from your normal bowel behavior or how you're feeling, you should definitely get checked out by your physician. And yes, common is common. Hemorrhoids do happen in young people too. But if the bleeding continues, then this just doesn't fit the picture, and you have to keep persistently advocating for yourself and checking out with your doctors, and eventually somebody is going to get the appropriate treatment, workup initiated and hopefully diagnose this early. But it's a very difficult scenario where I think primary care physicians also don't realize the epidemic that we're seeing, or are starting to realize it, and they're starting to think about it. But a lot more education in the community, in primary care, in subspecialty care, will need to happen to keep our patients safe.
Dr. Al-Rajabi, what are the current colonoscopy guidelines? Can you go over those with us?
So right now, the U.S. Preventive Task Force and the American Cancer Society recommend colonoscopies for all individuals at the age of 45 and above. Now, that does not include patients that have high-risk family genetics. So, so if you have a family member like your mom, dad, or siblings that have developed cancer at an early onset age, you may need to get checked out sooner. But it's a rule. It's 10 years before your mom or dad were diagnosed if they have a history of that. So if they were diagnosed at a young age at 45, and you would have to get your colonoscopy at 35. But of course, there are other genetics and familial diseases that would need and merit colonoscopies even sooner, like Lynch syndrome or AFP. Or a very strong family history of polyposis. IBD is also another one that we would also, it's part of the routine in scoping and screening these patients regularly.
All right, be sure to ask your questions. You can use the chat on YouTube or Facebook. You can email the Medical News Network. That information is there on your screen. Jackson, you've been really outspoken about environmental aspects and the foods that we consume contributing to the rise in colon cancer rates. You've made major changes yourself to your own habits. How so?
Yeah, the big thing for me after getting diagnosed was really taking a look at what I was putting into my body, trying to eliminate, as much like heavily processed foods as possible. Trying to just do what I can to limit inflammation and other things in my body. So I'm just trying to eat cleaner, more whole foods, organic stuff, eggs, chicken. I've kind of cutting out for sure sugar from my diet as much as I possibly can. I mean, everything's got sugar in it nowadays, but as low amounts of sugar as I can possibly eat. I personally have made the decision to try to limit gluten as well. I'm not really eating anything red meat wise either. And so, I just think that, what you put in your body is extremely important and can help, your body naturally fight things as well as just, possibly make treatments and everything help out a lot more. And so a lot of my friends and people I know, I've made a lot of diet changes like that as well, just trying to eliminate all of the stuff and heavily processed things that are in our foods and being more conscious about what we're putting into our body.
Dr. Al-Rajabi, we ask this question of our cancer doctors every time they come on, and we're going to keep asking until we get some type of answer. But why do we continue to see this trend with cancer rates and people getting younger and younger? What is the research showing from what you're learning?
So we really don't know. That's the general answer to this. We wish we did, and there's a lot of great researchers working on developing pathways of why this generational shift happened. So when we used to have colon cancer above the age of 50, now it's we're going to see a rise in the risk of rectal and colon cancer by about 130% in patients that are in the age group of around 30 years of age in the next few decades. So we can see that shift. Everything is really going up. It's very hard to say. Jackson is healthy. He's an athlete. Obesity rates were suspected, but we have very healthy patients that are getting colon cancer. We're also seeing these rises in healthier states, like where hiking and more natural foods are happening, or organic foods are being utilized. So it's across the United States and the world, unfortunately. I believe it's probably something environmental. It could be things like microplastics. It could be a lot of the processed foods, like Jackson mentioned, could be resulting in this. It's just really hard to say at this point, but there's a lot of research trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's a true, unfortunate mystery. Dr. Al-Rajabi, what's next? What are the next steps in Jackson's treatment? Are there any promising trials?
Yes, we actually have a clinical trial at KU that I have in the back of my mind for Jackson. But right now, I think we're doing really well. I know we've modified some of his chemotherapy, so we could always modify that some more if we see any resistance. But definitely we have investigational drugs. We're part of the NCI network, and we have access to a lot of very promising new drugs. We also are looking at a lot of targeted therapies using bispecific antibodies, using antibodies that will induce an immune response in cancer patients like Jackson. We're also developing genetically engineered white cells or immune cells to try to wake up the immune system in attacking this cancer. The immune system is one of the best systems in our body to kill cancer, and if we could get that to work properly and fight cancers like Jackson's cancer, we could potentially develop very durable and long-term responses.
Very promising.
So all of that is happening here at KU. We definitely, it's a big interest of ours here.
Well, Jackson, something that's very exciting is this foundation that you have started. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so my mom, myself, and then a close family friend, Matt Fitzmaurice, we started kind of the idea when I was first diagnosed in the hospital of starting a foundation together. Matt's dad, Al Fitzmaurice, who played for the Royals, he passed away back in December from cancer, and I believe it was a mix of kind of lung, bone, and brain maybe. But we came together and we wanted to start just to do something to help people, like me in my situation that are going through a really tough time in their lives and need some help. And so the 3929 Foundation, 39 comes from Al's number whenever he played, and then the 29 was from my number growing up and playing through up into college. And so we actually just got back finally after many months our official 501c3 designation. So we are officially a nonprofit, which is amazing. We've had 2 events so far this year and have raised about $25,000, which is super cool. And so we're looking to continuously grow that. But all of the money that we raise goes directly to cancer patients to be able to apply to get financial assistance. My chemo treatments are extremely expensive. It's, I think, around like $75,000 every treatment. Luckily, I've got great insurance, that covers it, but 99% of people aren't like me and aren't in my situation and as lucky as myself. So anything we can do to help people, cover a bill, help with a treatment, whatever it may be, is something that we're trying to do on top of raise awareness, not only about colon cancer, but all types of cancers. My mom is a 17-year breast cancer survivor. Her mother passed away from it right when I was born. There's so many people I know that are affected by all different types of cancers. And so whatever we can do to raise awareness, just about cancer in general, changing diets, knowing about the warning signs, for me specifically about colon cancer, I mentioned it before, but the coolest thing for me is through all of this being able to talk about my signs and symptoms. And I've had so many people message me saying that they were able to go get colonoscopies because they experienced symptoms that I had, and they never thought about it before until I've gone through this and have shared my experience. And luckily, everybody has either been all clear or gotten some polyps removed, which is great. And so whatever I can do through my situation to help others and try to ensure nobody else gets diagnosed with 40 plus tumors on your liver and cancer all throughout your body, that's kind of my mission in life now. And so that is the main goal, of our foundation. And we've got great people like Dr. Aurajabi and Dr. Ashcraft that are, helping us with providing information to raise awareness, and get connected with other cancer patients, at KU and all across the country. We just had a board meeting, and that's kind of our goal and our vision for the foundation, is not just to help people here locally, but help people across the country and across the world, because, so many people are getting affected by this. And I just talked to Dr. Ashcraft. He did 6 surgeries on colon cancer patients last week, brand new patients, 6 in 1 week. And I personally know so many colon cancer patients that are my age, younger, and people under the age of 40 or 45. And so whatever we can do to just try to help people and make people aware of the signs and symptoms of cancer is what our goal is.
It's incredible how many people you've already reached in just a year since your diagnosis, and you're already doing so much work, so keep it up.
Thank you.
Keep it up. I want to get to a few questions and comments from our viewers this morning. Ruth Ellen says, but that age, you wouldn't think of cancer if doctors were telling you otherwise, so thank you for sharing your story. Ruth Ellen, Dr. Al-Rajabi wants to know, should guidelines for colonoscopies change with particular symptoms? Will they ever lower with these ages that we're seeing in younger people?
So what I think is going to happen and what is being developed are a lot of complementary testing that your primary care can do, especially if you have high-risk disease. That would probably give you a little bit more of a guidance. Colonoscopies, even though they are they've lowered the risk of dying from colon cancer by 30% across the board, they do have risk, and they're expensive, and unfortunately our health system does not have the capacity to increase the number of colonoscopies we provide, which is really a shame, because we know that this is a problem and we're trying to plan for it, but we just don't have the capacity to accommodate the necessary patients. But I think there's a lot of tests that are coming out that are going to look at DNA in the blood. They're also looking at DNA in the stool to identify high-risk patients. Of course, ultimately, these patients will need to get to colonoscopies for their diagnosis and treatment. But I think that's what I think the field is going towards, is more accessible tests to identify high-risk patients and then proceeding with colonoscopy. So hopefully more to come. And colon cancer is really the canary in the coal mine. We are seeing a rise in all GI cancers across the board. So this is not the first cancer we're going to be needing to figure out how to diagnose earlier.
A couple more questions. Jeremy asking, is it getting more common that younger people are getting colorectal cancers, or are we just finding it more often now that we realize to look for it more in younger people? Any thoughts on that?
No, definitely the incidence has increased and will continue to increase. Projections are dramatic in the next 3 decades. So I think the projections are showing like I said, about 130% increase in Jackson's age group in the next 3 decades. So more to come. We're seeing it across the world. It's not just the U.S.
Okay. Have you heard anything about this, Dr. Al-Rajabi? Marcia is saying Kansas City is a big barbecue town. I have seen that meats cooked this way is not good. Any ideas for how barbecue-loving Kansas Cityans can adapt to a healthier way of eating without leaving the joy of barbecue behind?
Yes.
Is that true, the way that barbecue is cooked? Is that like something causing an issue?
The charring itself, yes, can be a carcinogen. It is classified by the World Health Organization. Charred meats can increase your risk of colon cancer or malignancies. So, but I think in moderation, it's reasonable. I don't want to create any.
This is alarming news, Dr. Al-Rajabi. Even Jackson's eyebrows just raised, like, whoa.
Yeah, I love brisket. I used to eat a lot of brisket. Yes. I love barbecue.
But in moderation, it's perfectly fine, I think. But on a regular basis, daily basis, may not be a good idea, just like Jackson said. You really need a well-balanced, healthy diet. Your colon loves fiber, so the more fiber you could feed your colon, the less risk you have for cancers like colon cancer. So definitely make sure you have a well-balanced diet. There's anything you increase too much of may not be good for your body, and that also includes alcohol. Recently, the studies, colon cancer and breast cancer are one of the 2 main cancers that are being associated with regular alcohol consumption. So we really need to make sure we stay away from anything that could increase the risk of it.
Dr. Al-Rajabi, such great information today. We always appreciate your insight. What is the biggest takeaway you want people to really, really get from this program today?
I think the inspiring story from Jackson's journey should really resound in a lot of viewers. Please be your own advocate. If you have risk, it's always better to get checked out, and always, if you're not feeling right, keep checking with your doctor until you feel that things have been properly addressed. And if not, get a second opinion or a third opinion. Don't disregard your symptoms and how your body feels. You know how you should feel, and you have to advocate for yourself.
Jackson, until we meet again, till we see you again for the next update, what's the big takeaway from your story?
To echo what Dr. Al-Rajabi said, if something's not feeling right, go get checked out. I ignored a lot of signs and symptoms, and also don't take no for an answer. You do have to advocate for yourself. You have to fight to get answers. So if you hear no, keep pushing, go get checked out. One thing that I love about working with Dr. Al-Rajabi is that he encourages me to go get opinions from other places. So I think that never hurts. Go get opinions, go get checked out from multiple places, fight for yourself to get the care that you need, and then also just be mindful of what you're putting into your body. I thought I was before, but, in comparison to now, I really wasn't. So just try to eat healthy and live a good lifestyle, and just do what you can to fight for yourself and your health care.
Thank you for your advocacy for yourself and for others.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing your stories always. Thanks to both of our guests today. Thanks to our viewers for being with us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
It's one of the most feared diagnoses, Alzheimer's disease. I'm Alexis Del Cid. On the next All Things Brain Health, meet the man diagnosed at just 57 years old. And the relatively new treatment he and his wife say has drastically helped with his symptoms.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and open mics with Dr. Stein's podcast. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.